Gather round and let me tell you the story of the dwarves of the creative torch. It's a dwarven civilization in the southeast of Ushul Niral. Since even before the beginning of time, there were dwarves living in the southeast of Ushul Niral. Not much is known about these dwarves. They were scavengers and foragers. They were roaming the mountains here in the southeast, looking for food and shelter. But all of that changed in the year 1, when they built their fortress called Indenable. And by doing so, they founded their civilization. For a century, they survived the harsh and cold environment in the southeast. Below the freezing, icy surface, they would build a fortress worthy of envy. The only trading they could do was with the elves, who lived to the north, beyond the volcano called the Inferior Ash. You can see the elf settlements here, and the volcano is over here. So, well, they had to swallow their dwarven pride, and had successful trade relations with the elves, whose civilization was called the Adoration of Phantoms. Since their fortress had little fertile soil and no trees, they would often send out caravans to the elves, trading for food, and on the way back they would chop down some trees for the fortress, to be used to make beds and other furniture. As long as the elves weren't watching, that was always a successful mission. So what they would do is they would move north, keeping the mountains to their right, over here, and cross the plains over here, and then in the distance they'd see the volcano, and they'd follow the volcano, and eventually it would lead them to the elves over here. In the year 100, at the turn of the century, 7 dwarves led by Methel Ethertost would leave their fortress of Indenable for another trade expedition to the elves. The cold and frozen conditions were something they were accustomed to, so they packed their wagons, being pulled by yaks, and they traveled northbound, across the frozen seas, keeping the mountains to their right, across the plains, until in the distance they could see the volcano, the Inferior Ash. Traveling towards the volcano, passing it on the left, it was just a few days' travel until they reached the Elven trade depot. Their trading went as expected. The trade relation is a stable one, and the elves are always eager to get their hands on the stone crafts that the dwarves of Indenable always make. Their stone crafts are known throughout Ushul Niral, so they always fetch a good price. After getting their wagons filled with food and drink and a few caged animals, Methel wanted to return home as quickly as possible. The sunlight was irritating him, and he wanted to return to the comfortable, dark depths of his fortress. The elves warned him, though, about the weather. There's a storm brewing, as Lone Red Roses said, pointing towards the dark and menacing clouds. Methel ignored his advice and they set out. Elves are not known for their courage. Methel have called them weaklings not that long ago when they were passing by the volcano on their way to the trade depot. It'll be alright. But not long after embarking, they encountered a terrible storm. The weather kept getting worse and worse. And at one point, they even had to take shelter in one of their wagons. As they were taking cover in the wagon, Methel thought to himself that maybe the elves might have been right. I mean, it might have been better to just sit out the storm in the settlement nearby by the elves. It would have been safe. Well, it was too late now. The weather was really picking up. In the distance, a tornado was approaching. Methel hoped and hoped, prayed a little, that it wouldn't hit them. But, as he feared, the tornado kept approaching, and at one point, the tornado picked up the wagon and threw it in the air. All the 7 dwarfs held on for their dear lives, and they must have been thrown around and flown for at least 100 meters or more. With a bang, the wagon crashed into a tree and came to rest on one of the tree's huge branches. When Methel looked outside the wagon, he saw something he could not believe. The wagon was hanging in a tree, on the edge of the volcano, the Inferior Ash. The weather started clearing up, and Methel jumped out of the wagon. Oh no, the wheels were busted, the other 2 wagons were nowhere to be seen. Well, luckily the 7 dwarfs were okay, apart from a couple of bruises and cuts here and there. A few of the animals also seemed to have survived, but there was no hope in hell that the wagon could get them home. He took some time to take his new situation in. They had only a couple of days of food and drink in the crashed wagon. An anvil they were carrying lied nearby and was stuck in the ground. A few weapons, tools, There was no way they could make the trip home. Well, I guess they'd have to settle here and see if they can survive the seasons. Maybe in the summer, a new dwarven caravan would come by and they could hitch a ride. Oh well, I guess we'll just strike the earth and make a new outpost here. So, that was our origin story. We join our 7 dwarves here on the edge of the volcano called the Inferior Ash. They're standing there balancing precariously on the edge of the volcano together with the chickens and dogs. All standing there, presumably being very hot from all the lava that's only a few feet away from them. Their wagon is on the top of this tree, sitting in the middle of the tree over there. So yeah, that's quite something that it's stuck in there. Yeah, let's look at our dwarves. We got 7 dwarves. I'll go through them real quick. We got Enot Dusimkog, who is our miner. He can mine out our first part of the fortress. We got Tosit Usirdastad, who is a carpenter. He'll be making our beds predominantly in the beginning, and barrels and bins. Then we got Moril Tulleshem, who is a guard, together with Urvat Barrelstaff, who's also a guard. Then we got Logum Intanaskut, who's a mason. He'll be making a lot of furniture for us. Then we got Stukos Nabesarif, who is our grower. Hopefully he'll make the food, and he'll grow the food that we'll need pretty quickly. And then we got our leader, Methel Etheltost. And we can take a look at our leader. His quote is, "I need some more excitement in my life." Well, I think that might be on the way a little bit quicker than he might imagine. He is a citizen of the Creative Torch, which is our civilization, and he is a member of the Gilded Silver, which is our group. He is the expedition leader of the Gilded Silver. He arrived at Esmelfoker on the 15th of Granite in the year 100, which is today. He is 56 years old, born on the 17th of Sandstone in the year 44. So he's not very old, at least not for a dwarf. Well, let's look at his looks. His sideburns are clean shaven. His very long mustache is arranged in double braids. His very long beard is braided. His hair is clean shaven. His slightly flattened ears have great swinging lobes. He is short. He has a square chin. His aquamarine eyes are slightly rounded. His hair is saffron and his skin is dark brown. Alright. Let's take a look at his personality. He strongly prefers discussions of ideas and abstract concepts over handling specific practical issues. He is made deeply uncomfortable by differences in culture or appearance. He is prone to hatred and often develops negative feelings. Oh dear, that looks like something for a leader. He tends to make a small mess with his own possessions. Oh, don't we all? He has an active sense of humor. He is slow to anger. He can handle stress. He isn't particularly curious about the world. He is moved by art and natural beauty. He tends not to reveal personal information, though he is conflicted by this, as he dislikes this sort of concealment in the abstract. He tends to think before acting. He tends to consider what others think of him. He likes a little excitement now and then. He takes offered help and gifts without feeling particularly grateful. He has a tendency towards forming deep emotional bonds with others. He generally acts impartially and is rarely moved by mercy. He finds helping others emotionally rewarding. He becomes very focused during conversations when he's angry, and he needs alcohol to get through the working day. He likes working outdoors and grumbles only mildly at the inclement weather. Alright, well, might not be the first person I'd nominate to be the leader of the expedition, but hey, it is what it is. And he's going to lead us here. So, if we look at the map and our surroundings, you can see trees here. The top of the trees, I guess the canopies of the trees, you can see them here with the brown branches and the green leaves. And if we move one level up, you can see that the trees are starting to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And eventually you'll just see air. If we go back down, if we look to the south of us, there's a mountain. A mountain where we can go up. So if we go up, we can see that the floor is over there. And to our northeast, there's also a big peak or mountain. And yeah, that as you can see, that goes up very, very far. So that's an interesting feature that we can keep an eye on. If we go down, we'll get closer and closer to the floor. So yeah, on this level you can only see the trunks of all the trees that we can cut down. And there's some water and some pools. They're quite small, but they're there. And I think this is where we'll start building our fortress. So, I've designated some jobs for dwarves to do. One of the jobs is to cut down these trees over here, which will provide us with enough wood to build our first beds and maybe some furniture, some bins and barrels. I've designated a downward stairwell to be dug over here for mining dwarves. They can start digging down into the earth. And when we go down one level, you see an upward stairwell, which connects to the downward stairwell up above. Then a little hallway and another downward stairwell and an upward stairwell. And it will be kind of a winding stairwell down into the ground for just a couple of levels. And we'll see what kind of layers we'll find on the ground. Hopefully we'll find some fertile soil in the first layers where we can build our farms, and then under there we'll hope to find some stone which we can use to make some furniture, and we'll build our bedrooms and our fortress later there. But first let's unpause the game. I've designated Methel to be a miner, so he'll pick up a pickaxe and help with excavating the fortress in the first couple of years. Probably because, well, he's the expedition leader and he doesn't really have any other job to do, so he might as well help around. I'm unpausing the game now. So, Mofel just picked up his pickaxe. He's moving down the mountain now. He's going to carve a downward staircase. And let's see what the first layer on the ground is going to be. It looks like it's a sand layer. Look at the second layer. Seems to be peat. Clay layer. Alright, well, let's see if we hit a stone layer. There we go. That's a stone layer. It's a rhyolite layer. So, you use that stone to make furniture. Alright. They're nearly done. I've only designated a small part to be dug out to explore the underground a little bit. There we go. On the surface here we can see a lot of logs. That means that Morrel has been cutting down trees one by one. We can see him busy right now. He's cutting down the last of the trees. There we go. That's a nice big tree. Alright, and that's our first jobs done. Now that we know what we're working with underground, I've designated some more work for our miners to do. Here in the clay layer you can see that we've designated some room for our fields and our farms. Then right next to that we'll have our storage room, where we can haul all the stuff that's currently laying in our wagon in the top of that tree, in the side of the mountain, next to the volcano. We can haul all that stuff over here. Then we got a little stairway down inside of the storage room, and it will lead into the layer below, where we'll have some room for our workshops here in the bottom. And on the right we'll have some room for our dining room. It's quite a big dining room, but we're used to quite some luxury stuff in Deadable and back in the mountain homes. So smaller than this will just not do. Then if we go down one final layer, we'll have a little bit of room for our dormitory, which we'll build there. So yeah, this is plenty of work for our dwarves to do, so let's get to it. Here you can see the miners coming, and they're starting to work on the stockpile room and the places where the farm plots are going to be placed. They're not the most experienced miners, but they get the job done pretty quickly. The clay layer here is pretty easy to mine. Although there is some stone between the clay, which will take them a little bit longer, but they'll be done in no time. As you can see, there are two cats who are curiously looking on as the miners are mining out the room. Just hanging out for a little bit, and oh, there they go again. And there you go, they're done. That was pretty quick work. And now on to the second layer. And while they're working on the second layer, I'll designate a stockpile over here, so that the other dwarves can start bringing the stuff that's in the wagon back in the tree next to the volcano back to here, so that it's nice inside and it won't rot and it's not exposed to the elements. And while they're doing that, I've designated a couple of farm plots to be put over here. And let's see if Stukos, our farmer, is ready to sow some fields. Here we're following Stukos. He's just moving back towards the wagon to get some stuff over to the stockpile. He's still hauling at the moment. Here he's balancing over the edge of the volcano, grabbing what seems to be a chest, balancing all the way back. It's a wonder they'd never fall in. Climbing down the mountain with the chest on his back and back towards the stockpile. And here you can see Stukos moving towards the first plot of land. He's preparing the clay to be sowed in, and specifically here we'll sow plump helmets. They are small, purple mushrooms, which can grow underground, which is perfect for any self-respecting dwarven civilization. And one of the big benefits of these plump helmets is that they can be brewed into alcohol, as well as that they're edible. So you can put them in a roast or in a stew, which is perfect. Next door you can see the dwarves hauling stuff into our stockpile. There's still a lot of stuff back in the wagon in the tree, and there's also a lot of wood laying around outside, so we're putting everything indoors. Stukos has begun working on the second plot of land, and we'll join in again a little bit later, once he starts planting the plump helmets. And here we see him, planting his first plump helmet right in the corner of the farming plot. In about a season's time it will be a nice and purple plump helmet, ready to be picked up by any of the dwarves, and then it can be turned into a stew, or into a roast, or maybe into dwarven wine. While Stukos have been busy with the farms, the miners have been making progress on the workshop area, the dining hall, and, a level lower, the dormitory area. But the dwarven dormitory is not yet complete. In fact, we don't even have any beds yet. There isn't a bed to be seen anywhere near. So because of that, some of the dwarves, well, it's been a tiring day, so they've fallen asleep while on the job. You can see a couple of them here, sleeping in the stockpiles. They probably have their noses right into the barrels of dwarven wine. But, well, to be fair, that makes you sleep very well. So the next day, they've gone back to work and they've finished digging out the dormitory area. The day before, they've already finished working on the workshop area, so I think it's time to place down some workshops. First, we'll place down a carpenter workshop, so we can make some beds, so that the next time they won't fall asleep in the stockpiles. And I think we'll need a mason's workshop, so that we can make some furniture. It's especially nice for the dining hall, and we can make a couple of tables and chairs. Then we'll make a still. Well, we'll brew our alcohol in there, which is very important, especially when people are falling asleep with their heads in the barrels of alcohol. And finally we'll build a kitchen. Yeah, when Stukos is done harvesting all those plump helmets that he's just sown in the farm plots, we'll want to be able to cook them. Cook them into roasts. Yeah, that's a good idea. And while the miners are digging out the dining hall, we can see Logan the dwarf coming in to build the mason's workshop and the kitchen. And here we see Tosit the dwarf constructing the carpenter's workshop. And with the carpenter's workshop done, I'll queue up a few beds to be made, so that our dwarves can sleep better tonight. And just a few moments later we can see Tosit working hard to making the fortress's first bed. He is a proficient carpenter, so it should be a pretty good bed. Shortly after he's done, we can see Logum, the mason, picking up the bed and hauling it to the stockpile above. Tosit will haul a new piece of wood to the workshop and begin working on a new bed. And here we can see the bed in the middle of the stockpile. Let's take a closer look. Ooh, it's a superior bed. That's a pretty good one. Well done, Tosit. And now all we have to do is designate a spot where the dwarves can place the bed. And what better place than to put them in our new dormitory. And the dwarves quickly start hauling the beds to their new places. Next, all we have to do is to queue up a couple of doors in our new mason's workshop to make a door to close the dormitory off. We'll designate the beds as a dormitory, and the dwarves will have someplace nice to sleep tonight. Speaking of which, I think the dwarves have earned their rest tonight. It's been a busy day, and Mafal's the first to go to bed in the new dormitory, followed by one of the fortress's cats, who just left again. I guess it has vermin to hunt or something like that. Oh, it's back. It's back. Oh, no, oh, there it goes again. Well, I guess he's kind of worried about Mafal. It's been a busy day. He's got a lot of on his mind. I can understand him. And I think the other dwarves will soon follow Mafal. They'll all have a good night's rest here in the new dormitory. And I think that's a good point to end the episode for today. It's been a pretty productive couple of days. We've started our fortress, we've dug our central hall down a couple of levels, we've got farming up and going, we've got some workshops, we've got a carpenter shop, a mason shop, we built a still and a brewery, and a kitchen. Then we've dug out room for our future dining room, something we can start working on next episode. And finally we've got a dormitory where our dwarves are sleeping right now. So, thanks for watching. If you want to help us out, you can give the video a like, and we'll see you next time.